Hey everyone, today I am excited to bring you a update to the ZOIA Librarian app. We are on version 1.3 right now. After a while, my apologies on that. Had a lot of things happening during that time, but we have an update. There are two major features for this update, along with a number of fixes, general improvements, and preparations for future versions. Um, so I'll start with the main two. I will go over each tab and the changes, but for the most part, this is a compatibility update for two things. The first being the PatchStorage API. So the um, service that we use to generate these patches that you see here on the left-hand table is coming from an API call to the PatchStorage website. They recently, well, not too recently, but within the past 6 to 8 months, have updated their API to a new beta version and are depreciating the old alpha version. So this update basically changes that. So now we are supporting the latest version of PatchStorage that they are utilizing for communicating the patches and all the metadata about the patches. This does mean that older versions of the app will eventually, at whatever point PatchStorage determines, will cease to work with the alpha endpoint. Um, as of my discussions and tests with the folks over at PatchStorage, they don't seem to have set a date for when alpha is being fully phased out. But hopefully, that's for a long time, and it can still be supported in older versions of the app. um, so, along with this API update, includes a major functionality, which I'm very excited to be able to bring to you, is this ability to upload to the website your own patches. So, within the local storage tab, there is a new button here above the patch notes called Upload to Patch Storage. This will only be enabled for the time being on patches that you have uploaded to the application because they presumably belong to you and you're not, just uploading someone else's patch that you made a minor revision to, that kind of thing. We will explore some other options for how to handle this in the future with other patches, but for now, any patch that you have uploaded yourself will be able to be then posted to the PatchStorage API. So that's a very cool functionality. Basically, the way that this works is you need three things to be able to upload a patch. The first that it asks you for is your PatchStorage credentials. So these are the username and password that you use to log into your PatchStorage account. We need these to be able to generate an API token to make the connection to the application, to the web service hosted by PatchStorage. None of this information is stored or saved or even logged or anything within the application. It is being directly taken from this type box. So this isn't actually my credentials, but just saying an example. When you type in the password, it's blocked out. So nobody's going to see this information. It is being sent directly to the PatchStorage API to generate an API token. I want to be crystal clear about that. Once that is generated, it will then prompt you to choose an image file. All patches on PatchStorage, I'll go to one now, for example. All patches on PatchStorage have an image file that you need to supply when you upload the patch. So it could be any PNG, JPEG, any image that you want. So when you go to do that upload process, you give your credentials, and then it then prompts you with a directory box to then pick a picture to upload with. Okay, so once you supply the credentials in the picture, then it's going to take this patch, which is all of this information, all of the basically the bin file that's loaded into the application, plus all the patch notes. It will put that on patch storage as a new patch, which is very, very cool. I didn't think that this feature would be able to be added, but they did update the API to include this feature. So we are putting that to great use with this 1.3 update. Planned changes. Currently, there is a method within the API to update patches that exist previously. I have not included that functionality in this version because I wanted to make sure that, one, the current just uploading functionality works, through stress testing and all of you folks trying it out yourself. And two, I wasn't 100% sure how to basically force it so that you can only update your own patches, right? So because patches are sort of the structure is that you have a user who uploads patches, and then that user should presumably have the rights to update that patch themselves versus some other person going in and updating that patch for them. So I wasn't 100% sure on how to resolve that quite yet in the implementation. So it is not there, but that is a planned update. Other things, like I had mentioned, currently it only works with patches that you uploaded. I'm still trying to figure out the best way to handle patches that exist on patch storage. So, for instance, patches that I've made. So, like Glamour Years. Like these are all patches that I've made. If I want to upload a new version, because the version that I got from the application is from patch storage, it's not letting me upload. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to handle that as well. So those are updates for the future. But it is a very cool feature, and I'm super glad to be able to include it. So that's the main thing, is the API changes. There were also changes related to the ZOIA firmware itself. The first being the sampler. So we finally got the sampler module. It is still in beta, version 3.0 beta. So there were new modules added within that beta. So the visualizer will now display those properly. The expanded visualizer will also display those properly. And also patches that include a sampler file. So for instance, this patch, this drum patch, includes a bunch of kick drum samples. When you download this patch, it will save a copy of the WAV files included in the upload. It will save them to the backend. And also, when you export to an SD card, it will take those samples and put them on your SD card under a labeled directory with the patch ID. So you'll get the samples that are included in the uploads, and they'll also be exported to your SD card when you include that patch in your export, which is very, very cool. You will most likely still have to do some manual adjustments for, let's say you load up the patch. It's not going to immediately find, I shouldn't say that, because the way that the sample works is that it does look one directory down. So it should be able to find the sample as long as the name is the same, and we do keep the same file names as the WAV files that were included. So it should work. I need to 100% test that, but we should be fine from that aspect. Let's see. Other things to talk about. Right. The other major thing, because I was talking about the sampler, the other major thing, in addition to the API changes, is a compatibility update with the UI. So between 1.2 and 1.3, I bought a new Mac machine. My old Catalina Intel Mac just wasn't cutting it anymore. I needed a new machine, so I got an M1 Pro MacBook, um, upgraded to Monterey and all that good stuff. So within that process, during my compilings and my own testing of the application, the UI was a little bit lacking. So I decided to overhaul by updating the. We used PySide on the back end. So we went from PySide 2 to PySide 6. We also made some changes along the way in the versioning. What that means for actual users is one is an unfortunate thing. One, unfortunately, because of the dependencies used, Mac machines that are not on at least Mac OS 11.0, which is Big Sur, the application will not work. So anything before Big Sur, so Catalina, the names I keep Mojave, those will not work with 1.3. That is an unfortunate consequence of the the UI updates that I have made and decided to do. So apologies for that. We are on 14.0 at this point, so I hope it's not too much of a friction point for users that want to update. The benefit, as I mentioned, is that the UI is now faster, snappier, and more modernized for these machines. Like I said, it was compiled on an M1 Pro machine, so it's a lot more modern than the Intel machine I had, and it just feels a little smoother to use overall. So that's a big benefit. That being said, I was still able to release an Intel Mac version of the application. So I reached out to some folks on the ZOIA Discord. I posted a beta of some Mac versions and some Windows versions before posting this. They were able to confirm that it worked on Intel machines, M1 machines, M2 machines, M3, as long as you had at least Mac OS version 11 or higher. So those are the requirements for Mac machines. For Windows, it works on 10 and 11. I recently got a Windows machine myself, so I can actually do some more development and testing there, which is great. And then last bit of bad news is I have decided to phase out my own bundling of the Ubuntu Linux version of the application for a couple of reasons. The first being I got no feedback, no bug reports, nothing related to anyone using the Linux version of the app. Two, it is not a platform that I personally enjoy using for like general purpose computing or like day to day like applications. I use Linux at work for servers, for model development, for data science, for deployments. That kind of thing is where I would use a Linux server. I wouldn't use Linux as my like main OS for actually like, you know, playing games or using an application to import patches and stuff like that. So a couple of reasons for that decision. You can still build it from source using GitHub. You could probably compile your own version just by having the right dependencies there. But that's a decision I have made. It'll save me some time. I won't have to worry about too many bugs, or I won't have to worry about compiling a version and getting the latest, you know, um, um, latest version of the software. You know, dual booted on my machines and all that stuff. So just saves me a lot of overhead to dump that version. Okay. Some other new features slash changes. Let's go to some patches. So in the excuse me, sorry, I'm unfortunately sick right now, but I wanted to get this video out sooner rather than later because I have been sitting on these versions for about a week, so I wanted to get the release out. So apologies for my voice and coughing and sniffles and stuff like that. As you remember, in 1.2, we released this beautiful visualizer tool, which I think is the best feature in the application currently. Number one, Windows users, I did not forget about you. I wasn't able to push the update to the Windows 1.2 release that I did for the Mac 1.2 release that enabled all patches to be viewed with the visualizer, regardless if they had a feedback loop. If you remember in the 1.2 video, I had mentioned that there was because of recursion, feedback loops, it couldn't resolve how to display this information if it had to loop back on itself, from the middle to the front. But I changed that behavior to now allow all patches to be displayed. So that is on Windows, as well as other changes. So some usability changes. It used to be you used to have to hold a Alt button before you moved around the screen, but now you don't have to. You can just drag it to your heart's desire. I also disabled the ability to remove connections by accident. So if you just kind of clicked on these, you can kind of take it out. Now that's no longer there. And then there's some shortcut key menu changes, just some general cleanup. Some general cleanup, some general housekeeping of how things are displayed. You can zoom in, you can select a region. It's a very, very cool platform and something that I'm still exploring for how to properly utilize this for a future editor going forward. So that's there. Let's see. Oh, this was a requested change. One of the things with version histories. So we have this idea of a version history being sort of a running list of the updates you make to a patch, and they do come in handy. I know Christopher uses them to great sort of success. You can see here he has like a running list of deep time, which is compiled as a zip file in PatchStorage. And if you upload a version of deep time, it will make a v3 within that folder for yourself. What was frustrating for some users and myself as well was that if you uploaded everything from your SD card, the whole entire folder, it would try to resolve that into each sort of named patch's own version history rather than an entire bundle folder of patches. So that change has now been made. So when there's three ways to get a patch in. You can import a single patch, which is a bin file, or a zip directory of bin files. That's option one. There's option two, where you import multiple patches from a directory, which is basically a folder of patches. It will resolve how it has been in the past, where if you have the same name or it's the same fuzzy name, there's some closeness approximation made. It will make a new version of that patch and create a version history for that patch. And then there's the new behavior for version history, whereas if you upload a bunch of patches at once, as this specifically is a version history, it will ignore every other patch in the list and just dump them as their own version, basically as a ZOIA folder. So this makes sort of organizing way easier. So for instance, this mini object, which is a version history, is a list of all the patches I had in my folder of basically the folder patches I had on my ZOIA. I think it's like 20 something patches. So these are the ones that I use pretty much all the time. So before this change, if I had tried to upload this as a version history, it would try to resolve all of them individually back here. So we would see multiple versions of Degenerate Gain, multiple versions of 1978 Plate, and so on. The new behavior is that all of them will now just be in this one construct that then you can say, I want to make a folder from this mini version. There you go. There is your ZOIA folder that you can then export. You can make changes to, export, and then there's your super simplified way of altering how you manage patches to and from the unit. So thank you to, I forget who submitted this request, but thank you to the person who did. It is something that I had thought about for a while and was hesitant initially, but I'm super glad that this change is here. So I hope you guys enjoy it as well. What else? This is a sort of for a future version. I added this check for updates. So what this does, there won't be any updates because we're on the latest version. Basically, in the future, when I release 1.4 and above, whenever you open the application for the first time, it will run this check, or you can run this check manually. It will make a query against GitHub and check the releases page to see if there has been a new version published. If it has been, it will ask you to download that, and then you can replace your app file with the new version. So that's there, just a little easier to get the version updates. Those are the main new features. Again, the big two are the API changes that allow for uploading to PatchStorage, and the UI changes for compatibility and speed and improvements. There were a number of bug fixes, crashes related to error dialogues. Those have been fixed, mostly around loading from PatchStorage. Importing, deleting, those were all deal with pathing stuff, mostly on Windows. Those were resolved. There was with the new changes to the samplers, I rewrote the decompression for zip files so that way it properly loads the files that we need and only the files that we need. There was a very annoying bug on Mac where confirmation windows, so if you go to export a patch or try to do something like save a folder and it asked you if it was okay to overwrite, an existing folder, it wouldn't let you confirm it because it would default to no, which is the first option. That was resolved after that one took me a long time to resolve. And then there were some API issues that I had to resolve with the PatchStorage team, who have been super, super helpful, by the way. Just working with them, getting their approval and getting their feedback has been super great to work with that team. So I'm super thankful for that. So yeah, that's the gist of the updates. There's change logs on these sites. There is the updated user manual. Yeah, let me know if you run into any problems. And my hope for the future is that I will put out smaller updates, but more frequent is my plan for this application. Now that I have a devoted platform for development on Windows and a devoted platform for Mac, I can have machines that are dedicated for those purposes, and I can devote development time to each of them. That is my plan going forward. The confirmed list of future plans, this is subject to change. Optimize patch expander with different ways of viewing the patches, different ways of laying out the patches. That also leads into development for patch editing and creation, because most likely the UI for that will look similar to the expander. And then support update put requests for updates to patches on PatchStorage that you own. That's going to be the tricky part about that, but that is a planned change coming in the future. Known issues. Again, the old alpha API endpoint is being phased out, so older versions of the application will no longer support patch storage, which is a big thing. So I understand that. And then still the full routing isn't going to be displayed due to feedback loops, but all patches will be displayed as much as they can be with the changes that were made to the layout algorithm. So yeah, before I start coughing, I'm going to end the video. Thank you everybody for your support, and I will see you next time.